Hello and welcome to Car Dealer Live. I'm James Bagger, I'm the founder of Car Dealer Magazine, and today on the show we're talking the growth in digital online sales and what consumers really want from the process. Now joining us for this is Auto Trader's Commercial Director Ian Plummer. He and his team carried out some extensive research into the changing needs of online buyers. Ian joins me today. Thank you very much for joining us to explain this, Ian. I hope you're well.
Pleasure,
Nice to see you. So let's go straight into this. Some fascinating research which we're gonna put in full on the website. But firstly, you found consumers' appetite for online car sales is actually increasing, haven't you?
It is. I mean, the survey was quite extensive. We interviewed 1,500 people in August, so recent period, post-pandemic and so on, post-lockdown, so I think a relevant period, but also did the same surveys we'd done a year prior and did indeed find a sensitive movement, not a huge jump, but a good movement forwards of people keen to consider buying a car online. So actually 41% of people said they would consider buying online now. That rose from 37% this time last year, which is, I think, a sign of optimism and interest in this area, but there's still a long way to go yet.
So I mean, it's a marginal rise in a year, but it's still a large proportion of people out there, isn't there, that are thinking about doing it this way, and matched at the same time of lots of retailers offering this home delivery, click and collect. And I know it's something that you're doing on the website too. Do you think the dealers who take this sort of digital approach can grow their market share? Can they grab more sales off the back of this?
I'm certain they can, and that's one of the clear findings of the research as well. Is yes, there's an increase of appetite for online buying, but the real fundamental opportunity for retailers is to embrace the need to blend their own digital offerings with their physical experience that the consumer is still saying they absolutely still enjoy. Many more people are looking to do more things online for sure. That's definitely happening, including sort of further jobs to be done that are, let's say, further down the funnel than we would instinctively and let's say historically think. But the contact with the retailer, helping people further down those stages, those jobs to be done, progressing things is definitely useful. And some people do still want to only enjoy the retailer experience. So there's still a swathe of people who are not necessarily looking to jump on the online bandwagon. So the challenge, I think, for retailers is being able to offer a tailored experience, blending the digital and physical across the piece. For many, doing a pure online journey probably more and more as the technology allows, that will be really powerful. But equally being able to do the same as we've probably always done for a small minority of people that will probably still be there. So embracing those opportunities will definitely allow retailers to be among the winners, I think.
One of those interesting stats that I pulled out of it was that you think there's been 7 years, or I think it was a McKinsey stat actually, wasn't it? That 7 years of digital acceleration in just 7 months this year. Do you think that change is now going to just last? Is this the I hate the phrase, but the new normal?
The new normal is like one of those unprecedented, commonly used comments, a bit like you're on mute. We've heard those words too often.
Yes.
But no, I think that the shift, there's definitely been a big shift this way, and it's come back maybe a little bit post-lockdown. If you look at McKinsey data, you're right, it was 7 years of digital acceleration they've seen across Europe in the last 7 months. And I think we've seen that in the industry as well. The consumer's done that, they've made that shift, but the industry has done it too. You touched earlier on the kind of things we've been doing recently with our retail audience in putting live the online buying hub that we have with home delivery, click and collect options and so on, live videos, all those sort of things. We've now got 9,000 retailers sharing 350,000 cars that a consumer can buy from the comfort of their own armchair today. And as we often touch on, an online journey where you can actually click on a button and do everything really smoothly and seamlessly is the ultimate goal for some consumers, as well as the retailers and brands working in that direction, ourselves included. But actually today, those sort of tools that I just described, plus things like even signing off your finance docs at distance on an email, having a live video Zoom call to negotiate the price of the car, you can do an awful lot more digitally these days. And that's how we as consumers are behaving. So I think the car industry needs to embrace the fact that we are all consumers. Let's recognize how we behave and try and adapt our car selling methods to the way we all act as consumers, because that's what car buyers are actually looking for.
Another stat that struck me out of this was the fact that half of the people you surveyed are now willing to complete their purchase via home delivery or click and collect. Is that just because of the second lockdown they're in, or the pandemic, or is this just a shift in trend in the way that people want to collect and have their cars delivered in the future?
I think that one is bound to be somewhat influenced by the fact that today is the only thing you can do, for sure. But a bit like you mentioned, the online buying shift that we've seen, the ONS stats that are out there at the moment show that we went from 1 in 5 of online, of all retail products being bought online in the months in the spring before the lockdown period. That jumped to 1 in 3 in August as we'd gone through that lockdown period. It's now slightly back. It's 1 in 4, roughly. It's 28%, slightly more than 1 in 4. But you've seen a shift forwards, and as I said, a little bit backwards, because you can do things in a more, normal way. You can, I'm sure in December, let's hope we can go back into English retailers. Today, Welsh retailers are already saying people are coming back into store again. And when you can't do that, then clearly that's going to change things. But nonetheless, there is a sustained shift. Things don't go back to the old normal. And consumers are enjoying the way that they're being able to engage with car buying and so on at a distance. So why would they revert back? I don't think they will.
The one thing that springs to mind is when looking at this research is it doesn't quite match what dealers are telling me. They don't seem to share the same enthusiasm as some of the research that I've been reading from the likes of yourself and others into online car buying. I mean, recently I spoke to a number of dealer group leaders. They said that they only thought that 10% of sales were going to be completed online by 2025. Why do you think there's this disparity between what the dealers think and what the consumers and research companies like you are actually are saying that consumers want?
Well, firstly, I just reiterate the point that we aren't saying that everybody's going to go and buy a car online. When we're saying there are 41% of people who would consider doing it, there's always a difference between what you consider and what you actually go and do. And the actual doing bit is going to be limited by how available that opportunity is and how visible it is. Right now, today, if you look in the US, I think 0.9% of their automotive sales are already done online. There's a handful of cars that are sold online in the UK. I mean, literally, probably could count them on a few hands. So we haven't seen the sort of the growth of that side of the market, the visibility of that opportunity. And so, as consumers, I don't think we've necessarily engaged with the practical possibility of being able to do that. And I think as the operators that are out there grow the visibility of online buying, and we too, with the 9,000 retailers that have got those options on their ads on our platform today, make that more visible, it's only likely to increase the propensity of people to actually do that. But again, that isn't necessarily to say that the button will be clicked all the way from the beginning and then to the process. What we're saying is people want to do many more of the digital stages of the car buying journey. And in our latest research, a third of people are already saying they're doing more online than they were previously. That's the shift of behavior that I think really is going to change, and that retailers do already see.
So what's stopping consumers doing a deal completely online?
Well, the kind of barriers that still get in the way of being able to do it online fully are the things like that really add value in the retailer experience. So you've got aspects such as, I really want to sort of emotional points. So I want to touch the car, feel it, look at it, sometimes even smell it, but I want to probably drive it. If it's a used car, I want to check its condition probably, and I'm more likely to want to drive it, more so I think than on a new car. So those are sort of emotional barriers that get in the way. There are a few practical ones. Well, most people still prefer to finalize the deal in the retailer, and that probably means still the dealer in your point around how many people are going to buy purely online, the 10%. As a retailer, you're seeing the consumer. You're at some points in the buying journey, you're actually confirming the terms with them. So that isn't an online sale, though an awful lot of the car buying jobs to be done, as we call them, have been done online, more and more of them.
And that is one of the points, wasn't it, that's also made in this research, that you found actually the buyers like to do a lot of this car buying process alone, away from the showrooms. I mean, give me some examples of the sort of things that they like to do without any interaction.
I think the transparency point is the first one here. What they like doing is being able to, the classics such as obviously researching cars, checking options, comparing new and used makes, models, and so on. But then also checking out finance options. That's growing in terms of practicality for people at a distance, engaging with the value of their car, their current car, being able to check what that looks like. And we've got a guaranteed part exchange product that's just gone live now with trial retailers, and already yielding some strong results there. We know that that is a part of the journey which is often a cause of sort of a breakdown in the purchase of car. But equally, people might want to check out the value of the car that they're buying. In 3 years' time, they look at older cars. Well, how well are they faring? So there are lots of things in terms of research that you can do, but equally, more and more are going further into the checking out of a specific vehicle. So asking for a video of the vehicle to be sent to them by a sales executive. So again, that's this point around blending. The sales executive and the dealership is clearly doing something there, so the consumer isn't only on their own, in their own comfort, the comfort of their own home, purely without contact. They're often wanting to engage with the retailer, and that's where you can really see an added value for both the consumer getting help and the retailer starting to encourage the consumer down the route, hopefully, for them to be selling one of their own cars.
There was a very interesting part of the study where you gave the consumers a vision of this future where the whole deal's done online, it's delivered to their home, they get a week to drive the car and decide they're happy. I mean, it sounds awfully familiar, that scenario. What did the consumers think to that? I mean, what did they say? Did they like it?
Absolutely. I mean, that goes back to the point I tried to touch on a minute ago about the lack of visibility of this sort of thing, because, we all engage with the principle of online grocery buying or buying our books or our clothes or whatever, because we've probably seen it done. If in many cases, we've probably done it ourselves. 1 in 4 of us aren't doing that, obviously, most of the time. So the chances are it's become visible. That's not the case, as you touched on, in car buying. So when we showed that journey to people, 61% thought it was an appealing way to buy a car, which is a huge number. That is nonetheless something to sort of, let's say, moderate that enthusiasm, something to put into perspective when you consider that nonetheless 30% of people didn't find it appealing. So as I touched on earlier, some people, however sort of transparent and consistent and easy that journey may be, still would prefer to buy a car perhaps in a more traditional way. So there's a period of change ahead of us, but it's not 100% of consumers doing things in one given way. That's far from it. It'll be much more of a tailored sales experience, I think.
Yeah, I suppose it might sound appealing, but actually, when it comes to actually going out there and doing it, it might be a very different matter. What about those people, Ian, who have already bought online? Because there will be some people out there. What will they do it again? I mean, did they like the experience?
Yes, absolutely. We did a lot of in-depth qualitative research as well with people who'd already bought a car online, and showed that sort of opportunity to others as well that we just touched on that haven't but could have done. And actually, you saw that had a very strong impact, and likelihood to do it again increases massively if you've bought a car online recently. It also is proven that people are more likely to buy a car in an online manner or with more online content, let's say, if they bought a car recently, online or not, because they're more sort of au fait with the buying experience and the digital touch points that are developing in recent times. If you bought a car maybe 5 years ago, you're probably not so used to the kind of opportunities that we've just touched on, whether the digital things, even a Zoom call and so on. That's one of the challenges for the car industry. Most people change, or the transaction rate of the 35 million cars in our park is roughly 3.5 years. So most people don't actually do the same as they do with their Ocado delivery or the Tesco delivery every couple of weeks or whatever. If you're only seeing a car buying journey every 3 years or so, then you're often coming back into car buying with your previous opinions and confronted with a new opportunity, but it doesn't change that quickly. And I think that's one of the opportunities that we have to actually show people a better journey the next time they come back in and to wow them. Retailers have a great opportunity, I believe.
Things are certainly going to change rapidly over the next few months and years, aren't they? I mean, what would you say, speaking to car dealers, would be the main benefit to selling online? I mean, why should they be investing their time and effort into this?
Well, I think fundamentally we're seeing that consumers want to do more and more digital buying, and as I've touched on, that doesn't mean necessarily the whole thing fully online. If that's what a consumer wants to do, I think it's been proven that in any industry, meeting consumer expectations has to be good for a business. In our research previously, we've seen that 1 in 3 people said they'd buy a car more often if it was easier to do. And car buying, to be frank, isn't necessarily very easy. There are numerous jobs to be done. We've measured it as around 28 jobs to be done in buying a car. It gets even more complicated when you're buying an EV, and we're going to be doing a lot more of that. There are additional jobs to be done there. So the easier we can make it, the better it is for the consumer. But equally, we can, as I think as a retailer, we can also save ourselves time and add to the efficiency of the process, especially if we're adding in that sort of emotional angle and the advice sort of points that consumers still really value from retailers. So the real opportunity for a retailer is matching demand and actually speeding up sales so that we're delighting those third of people that hopefully will buy a car more often, therefore adding to the overall volume of sales of cars in the UK and building the value of the industry.
Ian, I'm going to put you on the spot here. So those dealers that I spoke to said that by 2025 they thought 10% of people would be buying online. What would you say by 2025 is the amount of people will be buying online?
I think that will depend on how well we all can work together in the industry to build the tools that we're talking about here that create the kind of seamless, consistent opportunity to delight the consumer experience that's clearly going more and more towards online. And I think you'll see online retail overall probably going from that 1 in 4 that we touched on to probably half. I'd be surprised if we don't do more online buying overall. And I think you'll probably see the online car buying growing probably upwards from 15 to 25%. I'd be more bullish in the number, but I do think it will depend on how you define an online purchase. I think showrooming was a term I recall being used a long time ago. People used to go into a John Lewis, check out the product, come home and click on the button. Now, whether you call that a pure online sale or actually a very influenced sale by the quality experience you've had in John Lewis and the store experience that you've had, as well as the online store, whether you call it that or call it a pure physical sale, I think is a moot point. And that's where the retailer experience is still vital, and the join between both physical retail experience and digital is essential. And the actual number we can add up to won't make much difference as long as retailers can be really winning by embracing the opportunity here.
Yeah, that's a very interesting point, Ian. It'd be interesting to see how those are classified, those online sales in the future, won't it? Because I'm sure there'll be a huge number of buyers who still want to go out there and see and feel these cars before purchasing them or doing it online.
Yeah, and before coming back home and pressing a button, but they might do it the other way around as well. They might be in the showroom confirming the deal that they've researched intensively at home. We've done research before lockdown that proved that 64% of people actually made their first contact with a retailer as a walk-in. They aren't a walk-in in the old sort of definition of the term we have in the industry. They're very well informed people that know what they're looking for. But they're actually coming into the dealership usually to confirm that they really like the car. They've driven it now, they've touched it, seen it, felt it even. They've got a vibe for it. It's an emotional purchase. It's the second biggest household purchase. And then in the dealer, they're pressing the button there. So it works both ways. And that's the point around the join you need to have between merchandising well online, delivering brilliantly offline, but equally it could work the other way around, having a great in-store experience and pressing a button when you get home.
Ian, fascinating stuff. Thank you very much for sharing that insight with us. We'll make sure that we put the full research on this web post so people can see it on our website. But thanks very much for joining us. I appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, so if you'd like more Car Dealer Lives like this one, you can log on to cardealermagazine.co.uk and click on the Live tab at the top of the page. If you'd like to be involved in Car Dealer Lives, you can email me. It's james@blackpoolmedia.co.uk. Find me on Twitter @CarDealerRed, or I'm on LinkedIn too. Thanks ever so much for joining me. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.